Hello, Fernando, and thank you for joining the SaaS Playbook today. For those who don't know Fernando, and I'm not sure why you don't know, I think it's time you take a pen and paper and sort of start writing notes because I think what Fernando has to share with us today can be something that we people don't often think about, but it's probably time you do, and we can desensitize some of the topics that we're about to cover. He's from Trust, and that name will make a lot of sense as we get on through this podcast. But Fernando, I would love to sort of focus on your journey before Trustate. You've described yourself as someone who challenges how things are traditionally done. Looking back,
Yes.
what moment in your career really shaped that?
And that's a good one, and takes me back into memory lane. I feel and I believe it was my time in the auto industry. When you're designing for drivers and designing and building products that are meant to be used while driving a vehicle and you cannot take your eyes from the road, makes you think completely different the way that you approach the form factor of your solutions with the needs that you need to present. And that just kind of pivoted in my mind the way that how do we iterate products, product development and product design in a way that allows you to validate those ideas, create a safe environment, a place for users, but at the same time provide value to the end user very rapidly. So for me, that kind of shifted things in the way that I build products and design products to make sure that I can just iterate very fast and deliver value the sooner that we can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think that's actually quite a common conception now as there's more and more startups that are popping up, but there's more and more tools and there's more and more software that is now available to the market.
Yes.
And that's kind of aligning with the point and the focus of this podcast is, yes, we have lots of shiny tools, but what exactly are we delivering to the human that we're trying to serve that is there for the business?
Mhm.
And I think what you said there is it probably needs a bit more credit than is due. If you could sort of speak to a younger version of yourself before stepping into this role, what's one lesson you wish you've learned earlier about building meaningful products?
It will be the fact that no product is perfect and no solution will be ever perfect. Focus for done rather than perfect. Just get it done. Get it out of the way, get it done. Don't worry about perfection. Perfection will come through iteration that you will go in the product in the process itself, but just get it through the finish line. That's what matters because once you put a finished product into people's hands, then you start getting the actual valuable details of the product itself. Like, does it meet the intended goals? Is it functional for the end user? Is it valuable to them? Is it something that they will use it once and it's a novelty, or is it really something that they find valuable and come back and use it every single day? And that's when you start iterating into delivering future functionality that actually moves the needle, not for the business itself, but for the end customer. You move the needle on that side, then you start moving the needle on the business side.
So essentially is build something, get your idea to market as soon as humanly possible, but
Mhm.
also do that because look for the feedback in which the customers actually need and want, because they're the ones who essentially are going to tell you whether you're on the right track or not, essentially, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The customer feedback is I will say in the Pareto rule is the 80% of the value that you will need to build right there. It's nothing else. Everything else is noise. You will find that value in the feedback that they give you and what needs to
Mm,
be built next. So your roadmap really starts with I have an idea. I identify the value proposition of my idea. Here's the possible impact that it will have on users, the business value. So that's just the beginning of your roadmap. The next part is really understanding and analyzing the feedback that you receive from the user so that way you can start building your roadmap. So thinking about this, and I think this is one of the premises that we also failed to build on, is your roadmap. You don't have to look at it 10,000 miles down the road. You just have to look what I need to do tomorrow. And then from there on, you just take the next step and the next step. It doesn't have to be that long. It just has to be dynamic and flexible that you can build the functionality, deliver for tomorrow, and repeat the next day.
from a technical standpoint, I think looking at that, a lot of when I talk to more technical founders or leaders within the space, they kind of have an inverse version of that, Fernando.
Mhm.
They're like, we want to make sure that the product is 100% before we go to market. But I would agree on you on that front is how would you know if it's ever ready? Be so many iterations.
Exactly. You will never be ready. Product is never going to be perfect. The only perfect products that we have is the space shuttles. And that's because they depend, like human life depends on that. Same with medical devices. They have to hit that level of perfection because they are life supporting elements. And some of the software that we build is life supporting. So yes, you have to hit perfection, but at the same time, you have to build it in a way that you give yourself enough product to understand is it meeting the deadline? And then from there on, your product is going to continuously evolve. If you set yourself to say, hey, we just reached the goal, here it is, finished product, we have everything that we can ever think about it, collecting all those details, you will sit and look back and look at it and say, oh, well, now that's changed. The technology now has changed. I design and I build for Angular, but now all products are built with React. So my solution is perfect, but it's built for Angular. And now perfect Angular solution is deprecated because all the technologies have already shifted to a new platform itself. So you're always chasing, really, when you aim for perfection, you're always chasing, never delivering on a value proposition. But when you just focus on solving what is the main function that we need to get done and shipped out, build it, deliver, and then you will perfect it as you iterate the product itself.
As you said that, I don't know how many versions of Hera Digital we had to come through to be successful. How many times did we have to break, build, break until we figured out exactly what the customers actually want and what do they find value in, right? I think it's beautiful to think about it like that rather than I want all these features and all these tools to be also
Mhm.
as like a nice, but I think they're nice to haves rather than need to haves.
Exactly. It's funny that you mentioned that, like building all the functions that we think the customer needs or the customer telling us to need. I find kind of like a dichotomy in that concept because, and I got this may sound a little bit cliche, but just kind of reflecting on what Steve Jobs used to say, like the customer doesn't know what they want. In a way, we, I'm a customer too, and sometimes I don't know what I want.
Mhm.
And then the dichotomy comes into Simon Sinek when he says everything starts with why. When you design and you build with an end state of what speaks to the customer minds, what makes you you so unique, like why do Apple is so successful on the products because they speak to that why, then you start peeling into that onion of value. Customers will align themselves with what they find valuable. For Apple, their why is we challenge the status quo. And that's how they started with their customer. Because the initial set of customers are those um, crazy ones that they don't settle, that they just want to push the boundaries. And then they start building for a specific that market and then just roll it out. What did they say about Apple products at that point? They're the best. They're incredible because it spoke to their core belief systems. So that for me, that dichotomy is really when you start looking at the core belief system of the user, how they see themselves, and then you present them with value to themselves, then what you're building is extremely valuable for them.
Mm,
The
yeah.
yeah, customers sometimes we don't know what we want, and it's okay, but we gotta start. If you gotta explore what we believe is valuable to them, we gotta align in the same level. Like at the core of our minds, this is what makes me me, and I'm gonna help. I'm gonna create a product that enhances you at that level, that aligns 100% with your reptilian brain. So
Mm.
that way, the product feels so natural to each other.
In a weird way, I feel like we build products or service offerings to facilitate or close the gap in which we thought that there was an issue from the start. So we are our own customer. Ultimately, from the really early stages on of building business and entrepreneurship, I think that's the cornerstone of where the seed is planted and then you grow, you put your water, the sun comes out and then it grows and it grows and it grows. And just like humans and individuals, products will always have that growth trajectory, or at least hope to have that growth trajectory. Otherwise, I don't think, especially in the SaaS industry, I don't think you're going to last very long.
I love what you said there. We are our own customers. That's the first time that I hear it, and I think it has quite a weight. That statement has significant weight, and it leaves you thinking. Because in reality, yes, we are. So if I were to build a product today, and I am the customer, I need to build this product I need to consume this product as a customer. How will I do it? How will that feel to me? Like, what problems would it solve? How would it make my life better, easier? Um, that's that's a great starting point, I think, for anyone really. Like, I really love
Yeah.
it. I may just use it later on.
Yeah. You know where it was derived from, Fernando? Was actually, I was reading something earlier this morning where it said, grow up to be the person that you needed when you were younger. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, right?
It
And that
does.
is
It
basically like a
does.
business iteration of that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a we grew up to be the 80-year version of ourselves. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're just one day we're just sitting there, and then we just continue to evolve. Some people don't. Some people they just remain in their teen years, but
Yeah.
that's a different story for a different day.
That's a whole different podcast alone, Fernando. There's
Absolutely.
much to unpack there.
Yes.
Going back to Trustate, Trustate isn't just modernizing estate planning. It's rethinking as an industry entirely. Now, when you stepped in, what parts of the existing system felt most broken?
Most protein. Data security is extremely important anywhere. And we did a great job securing data on our end and securing data in transit. But at the same time, I felt that we could do a little bit better. Requirements such as multi-factor authentication, where we're using something that created a lot of friction for our users. And one thing that we believe, like I believe that it could be done better, is like, hey, look, there's modern systems that allows us to do multi-factor authentication without the current friction that we do. Is there a way for us to change this? And the answer is, let's take a look at it. I mean, it took us a while to get there, but our team now is actually working on reducing that friction. And that is a combination really of us putting ourselves into the client side, the customer side, and feeling the same pain, but at the same time trying to looking at the feedback directly from them, not just us feeling the pain itself, but listening to them and listening to the feedback that they have provided us and telling us like, this is one of the biggest ones that it hurts. Like we really want to see it change, different, improve. And that's the word that we have been putting. We have been working significantly on improving that area. Make it easy for me. Make it significantly easy for me to log in to do the work that I need to. The other part is give me some self-service capabilities that I can actually do on myself. And I think this hit personally for me as well is better communication. When we design systems as engineers, when we provide feedback, we just provide it as engineers. Really, you have little models or post on the screen that says successful, fail. Yeah, we know that it failed. We know it was a successful request, but it has no context whatsoever. And then we leave users like hanging, thinking like, okay, so what failed? Did I need to give you additional details, or did I miss the deal? What's going on? So we're working on redoing the way that we provide that feedback because we want to be more contextual. Did we miss something? Are we missing a field that is required for actually accomplish a task in the platform? Or is something went wrong on our side? So let's try it again. Here's what I capture from your last interaction. I mean, that human factor on making technology feel more human is what we're working on and modernizing the whole platform itself. So that way we can actually move our systems to be unique to be in a platform. So now we can actually be on the tools and platforms that our clients use. So again, we're just shifting the paradigm to be where they are and bringing the tools that they use to where they spend most of the time. So we don't add, we're not adding an additional overhead to their processes.
Especially when it comes to just touching on the point where you said you wanted to humanize the feedback and the tools that you currently provide, and that's no easy feat, right? And do you feel like that's because when you're dealing with estate, people need that, how do I put this? People need that human connection more so than any other industry?
Yes and no. I think yes, because the situations that we are, that our client or customers and their clients interact and engage, they are scenarios where we deal with end of life. And that's sensitive, right? No one plans what they will do and what will happen when they die. And it's a bit of a morbid thought, like, it's okay, so what happens if I'm here to say like a terminal sickness and I can continue life? So what will happen to me? What will happen to what we build as a family? So it's a bit of a tough situation. And also users who are dealing already with the loss of a loved one, or state planners and lawyers are helping in those situations and trying to bring support to the family members while executing trust and wills and everything else that were left behind. So again, it's scenarios. I'll be very concrete here. It's scenarios for like a loved one passing away and having to search for assets or liabilities in their names. And lawyers and their clients have to revive the story that the person passed away. That's an emotional, it's emotionally heavy on their clients. So for us to automate that process so their clients don't have to relive that moment, it changes the way that software moves, the way this industry and processes occur. I think it also may seem cliche, but it does kind of changes the world a little bit. It may not be a world changing or life changing solution, but it's just one tiny little piece that is inevitable for everyone in this planet. Like we're all gonna die at some point. So we will face the situations. But if we can do it better, why don't we do it better?
I mentioned this in our previous conversation. I used to work in banking and we used to deal with deceased estates. And exactly what you just said just now, they have to come into the bank, retell the story of the passing of their loved one, but they have to they've got to go to the DMV, they've got to go to this. And every single time they have to relive it. And I think that's
Exactly.
really beautiful. I think it's really beautiful that in a way you've bridged the gap between human emotions and
Mhm.
software. And that's a really fine overlap. Very fine. What you're doing has more value than chasing the dollar. It's more about how can we help that person?
Exactly. It's that the end. I mean, I love how you put it. Like instead of chasing the dollar, it's chasing the moment and helping people out because it is inevitable for all of us. And whether we plan or not, it's going to happen. And I think it's kind of like the legacy that we leave for our loved ones. Do we make it difficult for them once we're not here, or do we make the process a whole lot easier for them once we're not here?
But also, I would like to add that unless you've actually dealt with it firsthand with dealing with the state, you don't know how much of a headache it is, but you also don't know how hard it is from an emotional perspective to deal with. You sort of, it's really tricky. It's a really interesting industry that you've chosen to go into. But I think when it comes to rebuilding the platform for the next 5 or 10 years, as you mentioned in one of our previous conversations, what has been the hardest trade-off between speed, security, innovation, and customer satisfaction?
It's an industry that is a bit siloed. Well, the current players in the industry, they don't talk to each other. They don't like to talk to each other, interacting because they kind of created a moat around their own data. And I totally understand that. Like, hey, we're trying to capture the market. We are creating a market segmentation that we're leading in this market. But I think if we change the narrative in the way that is, like, look, but if you were to open the field and play well with others, have an ability to intercommunicate with many more systems and also to communicate outside of the estate planning and state management world and provide additional value, then we're actually doing more benefits, more beneficial work to not only estate planning and state management, but also do benefits to other industries. Really, it really comes back down. And I saw this in the property prop tech world. They don't play well with each other either. They just like to be on their own silos, and it's tough. And again, from a business financial perspective, I understand that, but it's us the disruptors that come in and say like, it doesn't have to be this way. We can play together, we can play well, and we can do a significant amount of good work and still capitalize on
Yeah.
the work that we do. So that's good.
I think that's just SaaS, honestly, from where I'm sitting. I think that's just a SaaS thing. But also, no, I take that back. It's not just a SaaS thing. It's a lot of industries who silo themselves, whether that be, I don't want you to see what I'm building so you can copy it.
Mhm.
But I think in your particular scenario, I think there is upside to sharing data or sharing information because it's more centralized and centric to the actual people dealing with that situation. And and it can be, I don't know if it will ever get to a point where everyone will play nicely together in the sandbox together, but hopefully this podcast will start, turning some heads, or hey, I know Fernando's open to it. I'll go reach out to him.
We're open to it. We're looking for those partners that are willing to change the way that things have been done. We get it. I get it. Like sometimes we build software, the legacy software that we just have to maintain, the brownfield optimization. It's there. We have to maintain it. And if we change it, if we decide to completely overhaul, it's a massive endeavor that it will take forever. And we have so much precedent work that needs to be done before we actually do that. But if we just look past our fires that we have in front of us and what that road looks like ahead of us, and if we say like, you know what, if we open the door, if we open these integrations, if we open the way that we do things, I can have access to data that I don't have today that is important for my business, that is on my side. I can use the data and use it in the strategic ways that add values to my business without giving it away, right? And I see this also with like the big players, hyperscalers, Salesforce. They're thinking about closing their gate for the data and their APIs. It's like, well, your data is here. We keep your data, and that's the most important thing. Well, yes, it is, but at the same time, I mean, look at what they're creating, like their data studio, which consolidates a lot of the data. I think the shift really is we're creating those mods because we see how AI is actually shaping the world and how people are getting insights from the data, but we're afraid that that data could leak because of how the models are trained. I think, or decisions are just a span out of just a fear factor, really. Like we're just being very reactive to the current world and these changes. But again, just thinking on the look past the fire, you will see that if we actually think it through strategically and open our playbook to be more friendly towards everybody, we may actually get more benefit out of this situation, out of that exercise. If I'm able to integrate with others, I can use their data, they can use my data, and we can all create additional value. We can actually move innovation even faster.
We're at least a few years away from that just yet. And
I think so.
people will be willing to share data like that because the topic of data can be so sensitive. Going back to your point of AI and it playing a role in what you're building, this is also a highly sensitive and regulated space in terms of where Trustate sits within the industry. Where do you see the most friction between innovation and trust?
Most friction, it really is on our human understanding of how the technology could act, what the technology could do for us. And I'm very cautious in there. I'm cautious in a way that no, I will not give an LLM model the data to start drafting something for me. But at the same time, I'm not going to be a lagger and sit here and say like, hey, actually, I'm going to draft all this documentation or all this material myself because again, I don't trust AI. I think it has to be conscious. We start simple. The way that we're doing it at Trustate is we're starting simple, very simple ways that AI can help us achieve in automating processes and automating steps without exposing sensitive data. The other part that the other feedback that I've heard about AI in the estate planning and estate management is hallucinations. Well, AI will hallucinate. Hallucinate because with AI without constraints, it has freedom. It's doing its job. being creative is when it's statistical process on understanding based on data. Here's what goes next in this scenarios. So it does a job, but again, it's our responsibility to set the boundaries and say like you don't need to be too creative. You just need to be deterministic, not probabilistic, deterministic, and we gotta set the boundaries here. So that's something that we're already experimenting and creating on our own automations with AI. And the last piece is being mindful of how we use the sensitive data. Not only we encrypt at rest, we also encrypt and trusted to protect sensitive PII. And that is just on the standard operating procedures that we have, right, between systems and other integrations. But when it comes to AI, we're creating the tooling so no model, no AI model or LLM model will ever look into our data. You can look into our structure, like what data, what variables should flow between the systems, understand what those variables mean, the true meaning of the data, but we'll never see the data itself. So in order for the models to actually comprehend what the users are trying to do through or AI agents, it really is get the contextual knowledge of the intent. So that way I can find the appropriate data schema and structures, and then I will use the tooling to extract the data. So at any moment, no PII is ever exposed to the model itself or anyone outside of the intended destination. That's kind of like those are our initial steps. Secure the data, secure the process, and ensure that at no moment any type of data is ever exposed outside of our doors.
When it comes to dealing with sensitive situations, one, but dealing with sensitive data, two, cybersecurity is probably not spoken about enough in our industry. And funny, I say that just before this podcast, I had
Mm.
a cybersecurity expert on and we were banging on about it for at least 45 minutes. But he really outlined to me that often businesses actually don't think about it in the forefront until AI came. And then they started having to take it a bit more seriously, right? It's kind of scary to think about because of the innovation and the complexities of AI now and the intuition of AI now. I'm kind of glad that it's forcing business owners and even consumers to have more of a think about it before they actually engage in something now.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I think our first motion with AI is that we humanize the models and the products themselves. That is kind of like a trend that I've seen that people have AI girlfriends or partners, digital partners, that they tell them problems and they tell them like about their day and they're expecting some level of emotion. That tells you a lot about what's going on in society, like where we are as a society and what we're looking for and the levels, how they are. But it also tells us a little bit more of in our mindsets, how do we see these products that are meant to help us automate a lot of the stuff, help us to increase our capacities. So we humanize them. And that's kind of like where we start sharing data. Like we humanize them thinking that, oh, it's kind of like I'm going to send my colleague a spreadsheet full of sensitive data. And I want my colleague to do an analysis of this data. Just give me the outcome because this is an important decision that we need to make. That's in our mindset. So we look at AI the same way as I hey, analyze this data for me and tell me what you see. What we just did, we just exposed all of our, like, I don't know, to the competitive pricing or the strategic information because of our mindset. So yes, IT, CISOs, they're changing the mindset into that's happening. That's how humans think and process. So how can we create safeguards to protect our data and customer data or sensitive data from exiting our premises in our control? And I think that's what the challenge relies. It's on the space that we keep improving. We're not there yet, and it's a responsibility to make sure that any person in any organization that deal with AI are trained accordingly and they understand the potential that AI has, but at the same time, the drawbacks. Models are trained on data. So the more data that they receive and they use for training purposes, the better they will get. So if you want a model that is specific to your business, it has to be trained with your specific business data, aka the context of your business and your operations. So how do you do that? And then you start thinking outside of the box. So that way you prevent like a Samsung type of event where there's sensitive information that leak to ChatGPT.
The amount of examples, no matter how big,
Almost.
how small your business is, no matter how smart or how experienced you are still at breach, or at least the potential
Mhm.
of breach. So I love the fact that you actually, well, at least Trustate actually has cybersecurity in the forefront perspective rather than let's build something and then we'll worry about the cybersecurity later once we've built and gone to market, right? So it's actually
Yeah.
worked in reverse for Trustate. But as Trustate scales, what feels like the biggest bottleneck right now? Would that be, technology, adoption, education, or something completely different?
As we scale, it is right now a technology paradigm because again, we're being very careful and mindful of how we build. Startup world is an interesting world, and that's one of the things that I like about the startup world. You just need to build very, very fast, iterate as fast as you can, put it in the market, test it, validate, and grow, deliver value. The issue with that is, again, with that, I mean, the technology that we have to use has to also serve the purpose that is going to be with us for the long term, but we're not putting generally accessible data in our products. These are products that have extremely sensitive data that could be used in like fraud,
Or
like
very dangerous
personal,
cases.
yeah, personal information data, like social security numbers and details like that. So we have to be careful how we improve that. And a balancing act is care for that data, protecting that data, but enabling velocity in the business so the business can actually move faster. So our decision really is how can we move faster without putting ourselves in a liability situation, whether that we became a liability or we are entering into a liability itself just because we want to do things faster or we want to create more value for our users. And one thing that I was actually reviewing a few days ago is using computer vision for extracting data in either documents or other like identifications. Well, that's great because I mean, OCR is just widely known. It's just mathematical or computer driven. There's no model training. But once you start comparing with other elements, you're trying to automate across services, then it starts opening the door of like, okay, well, I wanted to understand that this is a driver's license. So how can I make sure that what you're extracting, what you're seeing in computer vision is a driver's license? Yes, AWS and GCP have solutions already in place that they train the models. But my concern is if I give you data, are you going to use my data to train your models? Because that's a driver's license of one of our customers' clients. So
Mhm.
now we're in reach if I'm exposing that data to you. So as a team, we're like deciding do we use AWS or GCP for those decisions and talking to GCP about like, can we provide a private space for training the ML model so our data is only specifically used in our specifically instances and no one else and no general access public ML model uses the data for training? Or do we just invent ourselves our own library and use OCR and other tools to recreate that? What are the drawbacks? Time to market. Speed to market, is it lower, faster, or are we looking at the same time the resiliency of our data? Are we securing it? Are we exposing it? I mean, it's a balancing act that we're doing. And all that we're trying to do is deliver value very fast, but at the same time, secure our information.
In summary of all of that is basically, or at least how I understand that part, is the biggest bottleneck would be not only trying to move at speed while delivering value, but also making sure that the customer's information that is highly, highly sensitive, like your client data would be probably most top tier in terms of sensitivity,
Mhm.
but always ensuring that the information is not for traded, but also not accessed by general public. Did I get
Absolutely.
that correctly?
You get that correctly. The
Yeah.
best example, the best way to put it is kind of like a bank. Are the financial institutions are the slowest adopting new tech. There's a reason for it. We don't mess with people's money. So same with us. It's very sensitive information, but at the same time, we're trying to innovate. In innovation, there is room for velocity. There's room for being safe, and that's the act that we're doing at Trustate. Like we're making sure that we're innovating, we're disrupting the field, but we're doing it with a very conscious mind and approach that we are securing our steps. Every step is secure. There is nothing that we left behind that hasn't been reviewed, evaluated, or consider the possible risks in that decision.
It's not something that and it's actually sorry, funny that you mentioned that. You're almost a bank adjacent because you still have actually directly deal with banks with the state and assets and liquidity. It's not something I've ever really even thought about, being from a banking perspective or at least banking experience.
Very close to banking and very close to insurance.
Yeah, I was just about to say insurance as well. And like you said before, the from my memory in working in banking, and it may be different in the American market, but in the Australian market, there was little to no tech, to be honest with you. It
Mm.
was more, I remember filling out forms that were like this thick in terms of the pile, and you had to initial every single page to fact, right? And this is only a few years ago, fax it through because it would still remain safe to do so via fax. Now, I don't know if banking in Australia would ever sort of adopt AI because of the sensitivity of that data, but I mean, if you can provide some value to the Australian market, please let me know because I'm sure my banking friends would want to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, it's just changing very rapidly, right? I mean, and I'm pretty sure we're going to start seeing more and more, not just in banking, but in the other industries as well.
They have to. I mean, there's spaces like fintech, prop tech, insurance tech, health tech. Like the list goes on and on and on. And for them to have or carve out a space for themselves in the industry, they must be doing something, or they must have level of access or level of safeguard within cyber data security to make sure that they are serving their clients with 100% confidence.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right on that observation. I think it's not going to be immediate, even though the market is asking for it right now. But they're just taking their time, and rightfully so. They're not just the only ones. I mean, your bank could be like, hey, we're the most innovative bank in the industry, but they also depend on data from other services, and they also depend on data from or services from government. But they're not moving at the same speed. So sometimes our innovation is hindered because of the providers that we have to work with behind. If they're not adopting it very fast, how can we support them so they can move at a faster speed with us? Again, it's like it's not just me and my business that we are able to move at velocity and scale and deliver value. It's also supporting other ones that will allow us to move the industry itself with us. That's what we fail. That's what we fail because we're looking only for ourselves.
A big beast to try to tackle, Fernando. And I think you have to have a true passion in order to actually move towards success, knowing how hard it will be trying to bring that industry along with you in terms of innovation. So I'm excited to keep tabs on Trustate and yourself and see how you get along with that beast that you have to tackle. But I do have one last question for you, Fernando, before we wrap up, and that is for founders building products that support people during emotionally difficult moments. What responsibility do you believe technology companies carry beyond growth and revenue?
That's a good question. What responsibility we carry? I will say automation and automation of the process itself. Again, you don't want their clients or the people that are the users in those situations where we have a decedent revive those memories. We want them to see it through. We want to support them through the journey. So products that actually automate a lot of the process so they don't have to relieve that situation. It's one. The second part is context. Context is always king on what is happening, not just automate things, but also giving context of what needs to happen, what is needed, and also what the system could do needs from them. So they don't have to go back and ask their clients or their users for like, can you redo this for me? Again, I think it's kind of like a loop. The least friction that we can put on users to revive those hard situations, the better, the more valuable a product will be.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important note, especially from a technical perspective. No, I think a lot of people would take that on board. I think I can't speak on everyone's behalf, but I certainly would take that on board.
I just I just think like again that from designing products and designing and building products that are mindful to end user, regardless of the industry, regardless of the situations. I think technology just needs to do that thing, and that is provide better context. Context is important for us as humans, and that's one thing that machines will never understand is the
Mhm.
context behind decisions. That's what makes us humans, and that gives us that infinite power that we have to execute on the stuff that we do. Build with context, create, deliver on the context of who the end user is, focus on them. Product it's never finished. It's a journey. You will get there. But when you get there, there's going to be something new that you need to build. So you will continue in this journey forever. Join your roadmap. You don't have to have a 10,000 or a 50 kilometers roadmap of all the things that you want to do. Just focus on the next thing. Focus on tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. The rest of it is just noise.
That's for anyone listening. There's some shortcut tips for you right there that I definitely wouldn't have been able to give you. But thank you so much, Fernando. You've
Okay.
you've you've really given us a lot of insight, and you've given us a lot of, a bit of information and considerations coming into touching on such a sensitive industry, yet doing it carefully. So, at the end of the day, Trustate is still a business. It still needs to make some type of revenue to remain afloat. But I think that how you guys are doing it so consciously with some type of velocity, but also the fact that you have to pull alongside, the financial space and the insurance space, it's not going to be a quick win, unfortunately, Fernando. I think even from the outside looking in, and I think you know that as well. But
We know that.
we, it's more of a going to be like a 20-year type of situation, right?
Well, that's where the challenge lies. I mean,
Yep.
what if we can do it faster than that? What if we can disrupt it in a way? Again, not downplaying anything or in the industry itself, but what if we can actually do it differently, approach it differently? Sometimes that's what it takes to take it from a different perspective.
And I think when you keep bumping into the same challenges, you have no choice but to look at it from a different perspective.
Exactly. Let's look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Get a new
Oh,
set of
like
eyes.
again, thank you so much for making the time, Fernando.